Here we go. All right, so good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're coming from in the world. I'm Brian. This is Revit Radio. For those new on here, all this is you guys asking questions and I answer them. Hopefully, try to put the questions in the question and answer pod. We have the webinar chat going as well. Feel free to correct me, tell me I'm wrong, give me a better solution. I'm okay with all of that, or just, give other people options to the answers as well. But it is easier for me, especially since I'm by my lonesome today, if you put the questions in the Q&A pod, because sometimes the chat goes pretty quick and I will more than likely miss those. So by a show of hands, how many of you guys have opened and played with 26 yet? All right, because since the last Revit Radio we were out, 26 came out like literally 2 days after we did the last Revit Radio, so it was kind of nice. So only one person has played with 26 besides myself. Man, you all actually have real day jobs where you can't go through and, just play with things. So since the last Revit Radio, there was 26 came out. Not to mention, there was also already a service pack for 26. So I always like to talk about what's been released in the last month since the last Revit Radio. So I always go into the manage.autodesk.com, go to my product updates. Excuse me. Go to product updates up here and then just start coming here and say, okay, cool, what's going on in here? So as you can see, 25 did come out, and we also have 26 came out. They did release 26.0.1. Same time they released 25.4.1 and 3.2. Mostly was just a security bug that they found in the platform product. But there is a first service pack. So if anybody in your office is saying, hey, we need to wait for that first service pack, hotfix service pack. It's a gray area there. You can say it's out and you can start trying to push that upgrade. So just going to say there, and I see Caitlin's actually saying up here, oh, we just rolled out 25 as well. Yeah, so it's kind of in there. And as Michael said, he's already got Revit 26 installed with PyRevit and the Neat UI working, which I have both of those going as well. Although ironically, I did realize today when I was doing something at 25 that one of the add-ins I had never upgraded to 25. It's not one I use every day, but when I need it pretty desperately. And I'm like, crap, they don't have a 25 or a 26 update. So that did come out. You will see that there's a lot of other things out there. So if you guys are still on 23, they came out with a security patch for that, some lighting analysis from the old tools, as well as all the Revit interoperability tools if you're using that. And for those of you who are attempting on ACC to start using like the Autodesk data exchanges, it's basically where you can export out the Revit data to data. So you export out your Revit project to what they call a data exchange on ACC, and then that data exchange can be accessed by, they have add-in utilities for Rhino and a couple other programs, Tekla as well, I believe, and they can actually start looking at just the data as opposed to having to bring in your file. So they did come out with that yesterday. So if you haven't played with that at all, I suggest going and playing with it. If you're already playing with it, then there is a new version of that. I know nothing about it other than I literally just saw it when I opened this morning. So there you go. And also, if you're using the NWC add-ins and publish tools in Revit 25, they did update that. So go take a look at all the updates, see what you got going on out there, and hopefully that'll get going for you. Since I know Rick had, and he nicely forewarned me about his long list of questions, and I had a couple other emails come on questions too, we'll go ahead and just jump into this without me actually showing anything off at the beginning. So we'll just jump right into the questions as we get inside of here. So the first question came from Rick, and as of right now, Rick has all of the questions. So if you're tired of me saying the questions came from Rick, some of you guys also need to jump in and share as well. But Rick's first question is an opinion question. He says, I don't like to use annotation crop in views unless I have to. For instance, dependent views are the prime example. Otherwise, I keep annotation crop turned off for almost all views. Is there a good reason not to use annotative crop other than just my OCD? Does it add to file size? Anything weird like that? I personally agree, Rick, and I know I never turn annotative crop region on, and I have been in files. Let me just go open up some sort of floor plan where there's something going on inside of here. Like I have seen some people come in and be like, cool, let's go ahead and crop this view, right? So I'm going to take this crop region, and they're going to bring that crop region down like this, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, that annotative stuff is still in there. Where did my dot go for my crop? There it is. That annotative stuff is in there, so I'm just going to click the annotative crop region so I can turn those annotations off. In my mind, if this is not a dependent view, why would you ever crop out something that's a two-dimensional dumb or smart element. If I don't want to see those, I would just delete them. There's no way I would come in here and turn an annotative crop region off just to hide tags that I don't want to see. If I don't want to see them, they're tags. Delete the things, right? So for me, that's my biggest opinion. I go into projects quite often where I see people do things like that. Or even worse, I'll see somebody like duplicate an overall floor plan. So let me just go get rid of all the crop here. I'll see somebody like duplicate an overall floor plan, which is great, but they'll come down and be like, cool, I want to go duplicate this with detailing, right? Then they're coming down here, great. Now I'm going to make this an enlarged view. And then they're like, cool, I just wanted to get an enlarged view going around certain elements like this. So then they grab their little crop region like this. And as they've done that, they're going to start to see that, oh my goodness, all of those tags still existed. They're just floating outside of the annotative crop. Or in this scenario, they'll then come in and be like, oh my goodness, I don't want to see all that text, so I'll go turn the annotative crop region on, right? Again, in my mind, this is one of those things, if those are not there, if you're not seeing them, you should actually get rid of those things. So oftentimes for me, rather than getting rid of the annotative crop, I go just uncrop the view, but leave the crop region visible. Then I grab all of those annotative stuff, all the details, all the symbols, whatever, and I just hit the delete key. Alternatively, which I love this feature, and I initially didn't know how long this feature was out there. I have the Ideate software, and under the Ideate software tool, under their annotate tools, one of the things they have are detail or 2D tags and or text outside of the crop region are not being visible in that view. So if I were to come down here and I believe I just go to review, I don't use this tool that much. You'll see that I have 8 blank tags inside of here. There should be duplicate tags. Which one is this? Into the browse? Somewhere in here, there's a way for me to say which ones are not visible inside of there. I'll have to go through and I don't remember where it is. Blank tags, it's not the blank tags. There should be one in here called hidden tags or something. And that's one that I don't get is like, why, again, why are you doing that? So you can use some automation tools like that to do it. But again, in my mind, if it's outside the annotation, you should just be deleting it. Or even if in the case like this, I'd be like, man, let me just go through and delete all of these other elements that are going to be tags, etc. Right? So I'm going to be grabbing anything that's a tag, any sort of things like that, any text, anything like that. Cool. Let me go delete those and we're good to go. Then I can say crop my view again. So no, Rick, it's not just you, in my opinion. I don't believe there's any good reasons out there for me. So yeah, Simon, there is a way to go through the Ideate tools. Follow-up question from Simon is like, hey, is there any add-in tool for that? Yeah, there is that add-in tool from Ideate that does go in there and do it. It'll also go in there and start to tell you if somebody comes in here to a tag and says hide and view this element. That one pisses me off even more. It's like, literally, why are you hiding an element that is a tag? Delete it. If you need it back, then you can retag the wall and you'll get that same tag back. Oh my God, that was so much more difficult than going to the sunglasses tool, coming to that sunglasses tool and saying, oh, let me find out what's not there, etc. So yes, you have that capability. It's always my suggestion, go through and just do that. So I don't know if anybody else has a reason for turning the annotative crop view on a view, great. I personally, the only time I've also possibly ever done that, if there was like a section that I happened to be cutting through and I was like getting part of a section and the section head was like coming up way down here, sometimes turning that annotative crop view off will adjust that. That's literally the only time I've done it. But as for Rick's question on does it slow you down or anything like that, I have no idea. I could probably say that if you're turning the annotative crop on to hide all of this stuff, that is probably going to make it slower, A, because you have those elements placed, and B, Revit then has to, when you open up that view, process the data that's being hidden by the annotative crop view if it's on. Is it going to be drastic? Probably not, but if you had a million views and all of those had the annotative crop region on, sure, it would probably slow you down more than not. But I haven't really gotten in there to do that. So as for file size, I don't know, people always ask me, does it add file size? File size, in my mind, is never a problem. I have 1 gig files that can work and synchronize in 5-6 minutes. I have other files that are 60 kilobyte files that take 15 minutes to synchronize. So file size to me isn't what the process is. It's A, when we're working day to day, doing synchronizing, opening, etc. File size isn't one of those things to me that I personally ever worry about. So hopefully it answered Rick's question. First question, we'll say. And again, if you guys have anything to add in the chat, always correct me, add things into the chat. Let me know I'm going crazy. So Rick has another question, another opinion question. I'd like to hear other people's responses on this as well. Need an opinion or opinions. I don't like using the title on sheet parameter for views unless I have to. For example, the boss insists that 2+ views having the same name, for instance. Finding my using that option way too often, in my opinion. Thoughts? I actually do use the title on sheet quite often. And where I use the title on sheet is not where most people are going to be getting into it. I thought I had it in here. I might not. But oftentimes I will have views like all of these working views. And these working views are, I have views that I use for publishing to ACC, for model coordination, etc. And when I do that, my title on sheet says not for sheets. So that way, if somebody does put this view onto the sheet, it comes up saying, oh, this was not intended for a sheet. Or if I happen to have a schedule, which I always do, for my views, then my views in there, I can go to this view list and I can start coming down here and saying, oh, look, the title on sheet says not for sheet, right? So now I can start to see that, oh, these ones shouldn't be on a sheet. So therefore, if I actually see a sheet name or sheet number, I should know that that's going to be wrong. So I do that often for things like that, for the title on sheet. But you are right. I get a lot of clients who are like, oh, I just wanted to say door detail. I don't want to say jam detail, head detail, blah, 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 anything else like that. So I get oftentimes where clients just be like, every single detail just says door detail. So yes, a lot of my clients do use that. We obviously in Revit still have to have a unique view name. So therefore we've got to have that view name, and that's where the title on sheet comes into play. So yeah, you can do that. Yeah, and so Caitlin's actually saying, and I have seen that too. So good thing to point out, Caitlin. There is a lot of people for searching for views will go in there and say, like door plan detail XYZ, but then the title on sheet just says door detail or whatever you wanted to say. So a lot of people for not only browser organization, but other things will make their view names set up to where they want it to be in the browser organization, and therefore then use the title on sheet where they start going through it that way. I am similar to Rick, don't necessarily like it because oftentimes for me, when I look at if somebody's opening and working from a PDF, I rarely go to the sheets to open up the sheets to find that view. So what I like to do is I look like at the PDF, oh, the view is called XYZ. Let me just go open up that view, right? I don't work through sheets. I don't like working through sheets that often. I would rather go to the source of truth, work in there, and then have it update when it pushes to the sheet. So for me, if I'm in a PDF looking at it, then I come over here and they all say door detail, not a big deal. I can obviously come down to the sheets, expand the sheets, and open up those views independently from those sheets. But it's one of those things that you do then have to come to the sheet on how many sheets with views on them. But if I had a here, I would open up the views from underneath. So for me, I'm not a big person who opens up sheets. And the reason why I don't open up the sheets is if I open up a sheet, it opens up every single view on that sheet, including a schedule, a legend, any of that stuff also gets open to memory. And if I literally only got to go change one detail on a sheet of 30 details, I don't need the 30 details going into my memory. I only want the one detail going in. So I update it there. Now it's done. Now when I print, I know it'll go through and go through. And Sarah, I'm glad you like that idea for working views. I wish that one of the things we could have in a view template was title on sheet. I really wish title on sheet would be one of the properties we could have for a view template. Because if I could, all of my working views, all of those system views, those types of things, I would be putting not for sheets or coordination view only or things like that. The other thing that did come up, and it's kind of funny I am saying this because this is contradictory to what I just said. The other thing that I don't think a lot of people know that on schedules, when you look at a schedule, let's actually go to a real schedule. The title up here does not have to match what's going on down here, right? So like for me, I wanted to start these all with code, right? This says code here, but I don't want it to say code occupant load IBC schedule. I don't want to say code plumbing requirement. I didn't want it to say all of this up there. So this is kind of like title on sheet. I don't know if everybody knows you can do this with a schedule, right? So your schedule can have a name up here. And if I go look at any other schedule, probably like my door schedule, you can tell that it's actually picking up the view name because it's in brackets, right? When you see the value up here in brackets, that says, cool, I am actually going to pick up that view name. So if I change this to be something else, I can't get my fingers on the right keys, but if I change it here, that is updating my view over here, right? Go ahead and undo that. So the thing that I always like to point out to this is it doesn't have to match. So if you are in a schedule, you can come up here and hit the clear cell for like the title or anything else. And when you do that, now I can come up here and say, cool, this is going to be an uppercase door schedule. Oh, my fingers are not communicating with my face today. So there we go. Door schedule, it's an uppercase, but I like it lowercase down here. So you can break that. If at any point in time you wanted to go back, again, you can come up here and say clear cell, and then you can come over here and in the parameters field, anybody know there's a parameters field up here? You can choose what information are you choosing from. I'm going to choose from the schedule. I'm going to choose its view name. I could also go down, add, insert below this and have the phase. So if you're like, cool, I really wanted to know, that's the door schedule, but what phase is it going to be in? Got to group all these, merge cells, right? Then in here, I want to be like, cool, I still want to pick up on that schedule information, and I wanted that to be on the phase. So this is my door schedule for my legend phase. I obviously didn't group them all together. I missed one over here. And come back. Group. Merge. Right, so that's my legend phase, right? So I can come through here and set this up. And what's great about this, and if you do this, you can change it to be new construction, and this will show me this is my now new construction door schedule. Everyone's like, wow, it's not a tool. That's built into Revit. It always has been in Revit, right? I can come down here and I'm going to go ahead and insert another row below this. Or no, actually, we'll go above this one. We'll go above this one. I do this often if I'm going to use these to like be exporting to Excel or something like that. I probably missed the last one. So before I grip those, let me zoom out so I can grab all of the headers before I merge them. Now I'll zoom back in. But now I come up here. You can also grab project information. So if you wanted to grab project information, all of that stuff is there. So a lot of times when I'm trying to come out here, I'm looking for project name, right? I can come up here and do the project name. So now when I'm using this to export to Excel, it's automatically pick up my project name, what I'm scheduling, and what phase on it. So that has always been in schedules. Well, maybe not always, but it's been there for at least 10 years. Most people didn't know it. And I laughed because I, honest truth, about 6, 7, 8 years ago, did not realize there was the clear cell button up here. So I would actually come in here and be like, crap, I wanted to get rid of this. So I'd come in and do a new row below. I can only go insert below. Then let me grab the one I didn't want and let me go ahead and delete this. And then let me group these and put the dumb name I wanted to put here. Yeah, I presented that at some conference. Somebody's like, why don't you just hit the clear cell button? I'm like, God dang it, there's a clear cell up there. The other thing that I learned when I upgraded one of my projects, when we started getting the capability to shade every other row in here, when you come in here, like if I had done shading in this before, and I'm like, cool, I wanted the whole column to be shaded in pink, right? And then I came back at one point in time and said, great, I don't want that to be shaded in pink, but I didn't understand that there was a reset up here. So I came back here to shading and said, no, let's just go back and shade those to be white. And then I upgraded a project and my gray lines didn't go all the way through. And I'm like, what's going on here? How do I get that back? And I'm like, do I have to literally manually go do each one? And then I came up here and realized, oh no, there is a reset, which will put you back to where you were. So sorry, total sidetrack from the original question that Rick asked on the title on sheet, but that's me. I get sidetracked. So if you don't like it, you get what you pay for. So hopefully, Rick, that answered your question on do you use the sheet title? I think a lot of people came in. Some good thoughts on those. So hopefully that made sense for you. Alrighty. Since Michael actually plugged it in, which I actually had this one, but I'm gonna go get rid of my email. So Michael actually plugged it in. I'm gonna bounce his in front of one of Rick's 12 questions. Plugins for Revit and point clouds. Any recommendations, and what about cost? I know DI Roots or D Roots used to have a point cloud tool that I'd used at one point in time. And the reason why I liked it is it would allow you to slice the point cloud independent of Revit's crop region. So currently for me, when I work on a crop or work with point clouds in Revit, I go change my crop region. So if I'm working on a floor plan, I go like set that to be like at 4 feet for the cut plane. The bottom I set to be for 3 foot 11, and I set the top to be at 4 feet 1. So literally, I'm only giving myself like a 2 inch slice through that point cloud. I know the one DI Roots used to have, and I don't know if they even still have it. The one that they used to have, you had the capability of going in and just slicing the point cloud like that. So you can say, hey, I want to slice the point cloud at this point in time. And it was like a three-dimensional slice. So it would like slice it that way in every single view, including your 3D view, etc. That was kind of a downside in my personal opinion, but that was there. The only other point cloud plugin I have used was actually when I had one of those scanners. I think it was a Leica scanner. When I scanned my own residential house, I'd got the 30-day Leica program and put it on my laptop, and they had a Revit add-in, and that one worked beautifully. I did ask how much the cost of that was, and it was insanely more than what I could afford because I deal with point clouds like twice a year. So I know there is a ton out there for it. I just can't tell you if there's, I'm not the right person to be asking. I do know, and I got to think of his name. His name's Silvio. I know Silvio. He's on the Recapture Monkey, something like that, the 3D Monkey. I don't the Recap Monkey. I'm going to look for him up on LinkedIn right now. I know he's got a nice LinkedIn. Just got to remember how to spell his name. There it is. So I'm going to pull Silvio down. So this is Silvio. He he has a whole he does scanning for people, historic and whatever, and he goes back and does. He's got a great thing. I would possibly ask him. So I would go to his LinkedIn page and possibly ask him because I know he has a lot on there. And I will go ahead and put this in the chat so you guys can all get it from the chat. So here's his LinkedIn post. He does great work. He's one of the ones who actually taught me one of the big things when working with point clouds is you go in and in recap, there is a decimate command where you can go in and decimate it. Because honest truth for us architecturally, most of the point clouds are probably giving you points at like every 16th of an inch. We don't need to be that accurate. So you can go down and it's actually metric. So it's giving it to you like every 4 millimeters. Go in and change that to be like 12 or 8 or whatever you want for a quarter of an inch, whatever you feel. And by doing that, you eliminate the majority of those points. And once you get rid of the majority of those points, then you can start coming in and being like, okay, now it's going to be much easier for Revit to handle. I've actually done save as is, so I still have the original, decimated it so I could have one for just dealing with inside of Revit, and that has helped tremendously as well. So I don't deal with it enough to be able to answer that question, Michael. Hopefully somebody else will throw something in the chat for you saying, yes, we use this all the time and it's amazing. But that's all I got. All righty. So you're never going to guess who the next question is from? Going to be from Rick. So Rick asked about project parameters built for sheets. Just created just as a project parameter, not a shared parameter. How is it working to populate a sheet in index in a model that is linked into? Don't those need to be shared parameters so they have the same GUI? They do not. So when you start talking about project parameter, or excuse me, parameters for like sheet information, I don't make those shared parameters. I agree in the fact that they only need to be project parameters. They can, and I know a lot of people do make things like that shared parameters. There's two thoughts on this. I have not been making them shared parameters for years because they didn't need to be. The downside to that is if somebody is trying to create a Dynamo script to do something in this project versus that project versus that project, if they can look for the GUI number, it is going to be much easier for that to happen within Dynamo. I was actually doing something very in-depth on a project, and Autodesk got in, and he's like, oh, these aren't shared parameters. He's like, I can still do it, but it would have been much easier if those were shared parameters because then I could just go say, hey, find the parameter with this GUI, and I don't have to go through the 10-step process to look for the project parameter with the specific name I'm looking for. So there is that. I just also don't like the fact for me that I don't want to go push 70 parameters that are shared into people's projects. If they want it, that's great, but a project parameter can do the same thing. So when I come into like my project parameters, all of these down here, I'll get there. All of these ones that say sheet in front of them, not a single one of these are going to be shared parameters. These are just project parameters, right? So you can come in here, it's project parameter, it's got the name, it's got associated to, in my case, only sheets. We can go through and set this up so we can be that way. I personally like this scenario. You can make them shared parameters, and I know I get in arguments with people all the time, and I know some people are like, no, everything I do is a shared parameter. It's like, yeah, I don't need a family that has 100 parameters in there for every single one of those to be shared. So in my mind, I try to make them project parameters, right or wrong. I don't really know what's going on with that, but that's how I do it. The other big thing for me, Rick, is what you're saying with this, and I actually don't have one, but I know I have one of my clients. Let me cancel out of this. I also then go create a project that literally just has those parameters in it for all of the consultants to go in and start working with. Probably have one right here. Maybe not. Well, we're gonna have to wait for the 10 seconds for this to upgrade. So for this particular client, what I did is I went in and created a project for them. This project only has the project parameters that they want everybody to use for their sheet indexing. All right. That's it. It's the only project parameters on here. I've gotten rid of the stupid out of the box ones like exterior versus interior, whatever the heck they called those. Literally only has the things what they have for them. In this project, I give them all of the instructions on how to do this so they can open up this project, do transfer project standards if they want, and grab those parameters. But I also give them then the sheet index, which has all of those parameters associated to them. So not only do they just do that, they could also just come in here and be like, cool, let me just go ahead and copy this to the clipboard. Let me go back to a different project. That one's going to have it. This one won't. Let me go into this project and say manage, excuse me, not manage. Yeah, let me say modify, paste. And now when I paste that inside of here, I get that schedule. That schedule has also brought across all of those project parameters for me. All right. So this is how I set that up, and that's how I go through and do that for clients. It's literally takes them a couple seconds to do, and do all this so I don't forget. And then that way they're set up, they have it what they need, and there's instructions on the opening page that comes in here. And you can see everything's been purged out of this. This is what comes in and doing. The big reason why I do this way as well is if I tell somebody to go manually create those, and they misspell them, if they put 2 spaces in here or 1 space or misspelt something, Revit is not going to see that through the linked files. So it's just much easier. You open up this project, you copy and paste the schedule, or you transfer project standards, you're good to go, you're done. So I go through, that's how I've set it up. And then it does discuss, hey, here's the parameters and how to use them, etc. So that's kind of the big thing. The one thing I will say is you can't intermix those. So if you're doing them as project parameters and somebody thinks that they need to be shared parameters or yours are shared and they create them as project, that's where Revit's going to freak out and not see those through the sheet index. So you do have that option going in as well. Is that only true of sheet parameters? I'm assuming you meant when I said the GUIs for Dynamo. No, that's any parameter. When I was working on Project Auto, some of them were sheet parameters, some of them were actual other parameters that the client was requiring us to do. And he's like, oh, that would have been easier had those been shared parameters. So now that I know that, I do start having different decisions on that going forward. But I also came up with this process, 18 years ago. And that's just how it was. So you created a parameter in your model. Yeah, you don't have to transfer the parameters. You can manually go create all those parameters, Rick. But they have to be done specifically. And the one where we actually had a problem, we started getting hey, linked file has different blah, blah, blah. It's because when we created that parameter, we might have made it like a text parameter. And that's not edit, that's new. We made like a text parameter and they made it like a general parameter, or we made it a number parameter and they made it text. And that will have issues as well. So that's why for me, it's just do the file, they can go create it. And I, honest to truth, can't imagine trying to tell a consultant they got to go add these 45, whatever it is, parameters manually. That's just evil and wrong. So I would never tell a consultant, go spend half a day doing this one at a time. The other option is if you are going to start doing these as shared parameters, I would start looking into the parameter services, because you literally could make these all a shared parameter. And even if they were shared parameters and I was doing it that way, I would still give somebody a file to copy and paste in. 100% because it comes in, it's there, it's done. It takes them 10 seconds. The advantage of using parameter services, you could bring in more than one at a time, right? So the new parameter services, you could have literally parameter services that was only for your sheet indexing, have that all set up. You could share that on every single project. Then people could say, hey, cool, let me go grab all 40 of these. Let me load these into my project. And with the parameter services, you can also automatically assign categories. Hey, those only go to sheets. And they could do it all really quick. Personally, I would still do the copy paste, but that is another option. That's the other reason why I can't imagine not doing this again. 40 things, shared parameter or not, if you don't give to somebody, they've got to go into manage project parameters. They got to create new. They got to come up, either say select the shared and go select it, point to that stupid shared parameter file because they're not pointing to it originally, or come in here and type in sheet submittal and hope to God you spell it right. Go say it's going to be a text parameter. I'm going to group it under where I group it under, and then I got to come over here and say it's part of sheets. Not a huge deal, but it is going to slow you down. And see, I screwed up because I said time, not text. Because I keep forgetting to add time 6 releases ago. So when I tab down and hit the T key, it just goes right to time, not text. But yeah, create a project, let them copy paste, be done with it. Yeah, and Philip's saying they have another thing that they say insert from a file provided to them. It's the easiest way. My wife, I don't know, it was like a decade ago when she used to work for a structural engineer. They literally had a 35 or 40-minute YouTube video on how to set up their sheet parameters. And she's like, oh my God, I will pay for you to give them and train them on your way just so I don't have to do that on this project. She's like, I will pay for you to train them and set this up the way you have it set up for all of your clients because it would be cheaper for me to do that than to add the 50 parameters that they have. So yeah. So yeah. Totally able to do it. There you go. So that would be my answer to you. So no, they don't need to be shared. They just have to be the same, have the exact same spelling of the name. Also, uppercase, lowercase, so that it is case sensitive, as well as then the same type. So if you make it a number, they got to make it a number, etc. Because I do know on some of my project parameters, like I use grouping, and grouping is a number parameter for me. No, not grouping. One of them is. One of them is a number parameter. I just forget which one. And so if they don't make that a number parameter, then it does not work. Yeah, Rick's saying he's starting to get into the parameter services. Like I said, I haven't gotten total in depth into them, but they're advancing it all the time. I know because I sit in a every other week meeting on parameter services, and they're constantly changing things, and it's getting better and better and better. So, all right, I'm going to do a question from Tim. Was curious if it is possible to create 2 separate revision schedules in the title block. One numeric for major issues, one for like RFIs, etc. Um, I think you can. Emphasis on I think. So let me just come back over here. Let me go to a sheet. Let me grab one of my sheets. Let me just edit a title block here. Let me come over here to my schedule. Let me just duplicate a schedule. Can't duplicate a schedule. Maybe you can't. Can you have more than one? View, revision schedule. Cool. We'll leave all those. We'll say, okay, so I have 2 here. So you should be able to do 2 separate revision schedules. And then you're not going to be able to go inside. Oh, that's right. But yeah, you can create multiple revision schedules, but unfortunately, there's no filter. I always forget that you don't have a filter tab up here. So yeah, you could create 2, but unfortunately, you're not going to be able to come down here and say, hey, filter this out. I always forget that's there. So that's why I was like, I think so. Yes, you can create, to answer your question, Tim, you can create 2 separate revision schedules in a title block. Unfortunately, they both have to be the same because the filter command does not work. I do believe there's a wish list item on that. And I believe that's been there for an extremely long time. So I would try to go look online on the Revit ideas and see if there is a wish list and try to vote it up. Because yeah, I've wanted that before too. It's like, man, I have clients who will do 10 different packages and they want to know what's going on with that. So the other question, I wonder if there's even a field in here. No, there isn't anymore. I was wondering if in 26, if we were going to get some sort of property related to the sheet collections. But doesn't look like we do. So nope, sorry, no filters. So I was half right. Gotta love the fact that I can be half right sometimes. Because according to my children, I'm never right. All right, so we'll go back up to a question from Rick. Opinion and thoughts on brake lines. I hate brake lines. That's my thought. Done. Now, I'm not a big brake line person, but let's go through and read the rest. The boss man wants the zigzag to be the same size print regardless of scale. I completely agree with that. So they have a parameter you put in the scale factor. That is the worst possible way to do this. I'm not even going to finish reading your question, Rick. I am just going to go back and put where I think it should be. So my brake line is a detail component. I do not understand why Autodesk insisted on making that just a symbol or whatever. So mine is a detail component. My detail component is also line-based. For those of you who've been watching me long enough, you know I don't like to place something and then grab grips to change the length. So if I came down here to grab my brake line, I can just go click, click, boom, there's a brake line. If you wanted one up here, I can go click, click, here's your brake line, right? I can click the length I want it to be. I can set it up where it is going to be. And if I change the scale of this, you're going to see that that symbol gets a little bit, stays a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. It looks the same size, right? In proportion. So when I start looking at my family, it is a line-based detail component. So it does go through, and I started with the line-based detail component. Then you're going to see, actually mine, I lied. This does not have the nested symbol. Ooh, this must be an old one. My new one has a nested symbol. So my new one inside of here, this is actually a nested symbol. So I have a symbol that comes in and is nested. That symbol has the masking region. If I go into thin lines, that symbol has the masking region here. So it can mask out the line going across there. That symbol also has the masking region down here. So it masks up here if you happen to go over something. So it does have the capability to do that. I must have upgraded this project and never reloaded my updated detail component family. But yeah, that's what you just need to do. If you nest it as a symbol, then it can go through. I have one client, they're like, yeah, we ran into issues when we did the masking here, right? Because we wanted to mask this down here, but we did the masking here. It was masking things out we didn't want to see, or we didn't, like technically that should go up. So then they had the line running across. They're like, screw it, we just didn't care. We just don't mask. So the symbol just doesn't mask. They built the masking region into the line-based detail component, and then the symbol is just lines over the top of it. So it can be difficult. You can run into issues right here when, think if you got a fat line here, it's only getting part of it, not the other part. So that's what they've went through and set up and did. So, but yes, I'm not a big brake line fan personally. I don't use them. It's just why it's an extra waste of time to put it on there. And then my question is, cool, you put a brake line right here. I'll do doing that one. You put a brake line here. Well, does that mean you've got to brake line the dirt? Where do you draw the line? Because technically, I think that brake line should have come all the way down here because we're cutting the dirt. And then what about below the dirt? Do we brake line here below the dirt? And then what about over here at the? I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of brake lines. Yeah, not a big fan. I also have the capability in this one to turn the mask on and off. So if you did just want to have a brake line in there and you didn't need it to be masked. I know some people have like a double version of the brake line. I don't. I just like, cool. If you want another one, just copy it over and call it a day. But that's me. So yeah, you can nest the symbol. I'll have to go through. Maybe mine has never had the symbol nested in. Maybe that was just me doing that for other clients. Let me go look. Detail, division 0, brake line pick. Let's see if this one actually has the nested symbol in it. No, it does not. So I must have just been doing that for clients and not my own, but I know I've created that one several times. So yeah, you just got to nest the symbol into it. Yeah, not a big fan of them either, but your boss loves them. I always sit there and point out to people, it's like, okay, cool. So now you're forcing me to put this component here. And then if something needs to change, I've got to go change that component. How much time are we wasting putting these on here? Right. So whenever I'm trying to get something out of somebody, it's like, well, I don't think this is in here working. This really sets up inside of here. To me, I always bring it down to time it takes to place. Right. I had a structural engineer. Industry standard for structural engineer is like if it was a positive number, you'd put it in parentheses. If it was a negative number, you want it. So we'd go put in all their spot elevations. But the only way to put that in parentheses would be to literally go back and do a prefix and suffix after you put in the spot elevation. So they would. So in every single spot elevation, they'd go add a prefix and a suffix. And I'm like, you guys are spending 100 hours per project putting in parentheses. Can we just change that to be a plus or a minus for a positive value or a negative value and call it a day? And they were like, no. And they spent the 100 hours after about a year and a half, like, screw it, we're putting positives and negatives in there. So I always just try to break it down. That's how it goes. And yeah, Rick, so in summation, I do a line-based detail component and that symbol would be centered. I should go through and find one, but I know I've done it. I'm just not going to go through. It's pretty simple. So make your little jog what you wanted it to be, add the filled regions in there if you want, and then just nest that into your detail line and it will scale for you all of the time. All right, so Beth has a question. Any clever tricks for making a flexible LED strip light? Beth, what do you mean by flexible? Like I can curve and draw however I want to, or oh, just radius. Sorry, you put radius in there and I just didn't see the second line of the question. Um, the only thing I could say that if you really, really, really were trying to do something like that, you could make that a adaptive component with as many points as you wanted. So you could place that adaptively component um, family, put those things on there. You'd have to have a 2-point, a 3-point, a 4-point, whatever, and then nest in a diode and then divide that point. That'd be the only thing I could come up with. I have a line-based version of this only because I think I do. I think I finished it. Let me come back here. Oop, gotta go to my library. Finding. Now I just got to look for like strip light, LED, this one. So it wouldn't be much different than this. Nope, that's not the one I wanted that. So just so you guys know, I don't know if you guys knew this, but in Revit, and I haven't tested this in 26, but if you have a light source and you say that light source needs to be 60 feet long, Revit has a limitation of like 8.5 or 9 feet or something stupid, probably 3 meters or something. That's all the light source can be. So even though you make the light source 60 feet long in Revit, when you render, that light source has a maximum length to it. So don't know if you knew that. It's probably this one. No. End it strip. No, where is it? Did I never finish it? I basically did one where inside of here, you're going to see I have an LED diode. It's just a teeny tiny little LED diode family that I go through and I can change the length of this. And I think I think in the final version, I end up making the length like 1/8 of an inch. So this is 1 inch long. You can make that however you want. Then you put that into the family and you array it. Right. So it's literally just a point light source that comes in here. I put a box in here just so I could actually select something. But it's just an LED. It goes slow as crap. Going through and setting this up if you do it on a line-based handling. Only when placing it or modifying it. Like I said, I've created one. I don't know what folder it's in. It might not have been copied up to my 26 folder. But I do have one. But this gets nested in and then arrayed. And again, as I'm drawing it, it takes forever. So I literally have like the default value set to be like 5 feet when I draw it. So I get 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. And then if I'm gonna render, I select it. I go back and change the spacing value to be like 1 inch. Wait the 10 minutes, and then I go through and do my rendering. So yes, that's how I would do it. You could do the same thing because you could load regular families then into an adaptive component family, host that onto. You do need to make sure it's shared so the light source goes through. Then host that onto a single adaptive component family where it has 1 point. Then nest that adaptive component family, which has the nested LED light into it, into a regular adaptive and host that on the repeater. Um, be no different than I've seen a series of YouTube videos out there for doing like, like garden lights, like the droopy garden lights you see at like restaurants and stuff. The cable lights for that, I've seen those done the same way. The only difference is your light bulb is going to be teeny tiny as opposed to that. Let's see. Beth just sent a link saying they want a family for this. So yeah, if it's adaptive, you can make it a 3-point adaptive, so it is truly only an arc, or you could do splines along those points, and you could make it whatever weird shape you want. You could do that as well. So yes, that's how I would do it. If you want to do it, yeah, this completely flexible thing, yeah. So yes, if you really wanted to try to do something like that, that could be adaptive, and literally this is going to be just curving and splining through it. That's where you could start going through and getting that set up as well. So yeah, think, is he even on here? I think Philip actually, I thought I saw Philip. Yeah, Philip actually, I think has one on his YouTube channel too. Of, hey, I created one for this. I think it was originally Philip created it for like the Christmas one of the Christmas things like 15 years like back in 2012 when we got adaptive components. So it could be that as well. And I have one somewhere, I just don't remember where. Cool. All right, so what I got? 15 minutes, yes. Perfect. So printing a PDF throws off the scale ever so slightly when using the measuring tool Bluebeam. Why? How to combat? Seems like it only happens on certain projects. Rick, if it were me, the first thing I always do whenever I'm having an issue printing to PDF, I try multiple different PDF sources. The reason why I say that is like I know a lot of people use Bluebeam and they print a Bluebeam PDF. Two things. One, Bluebeam adds so much extra data in there to trying to keep that object intelligent that it does weird things to it. So I've said this before and I say it all the time. There is a program out there called Cute PDF. It is a free tool. It's one of the most simplified buttons out there. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. It is one of the most simplified things out there for Cute PDF. You download it, you try printing that, use your Bluebeam, use that, use the export to PDF, right? We now have the export to PDF as well, as opposed to printing to PDF. So I would try exporting PDF. I try your Bluebeam, I try that and see what results you're getting to see what's going on. Especially if it only happens in certain projects. My guess on that is that the Bluebeam PDF printer is not interpreting something going on correctly in that file. Like it might be thinking that file's a native units are millimeters, not inches. And so Bluebeam might just be freaking out on that when it's printing it. So not sure, but I would try multiple different variations to see what's going on with that one. So Cute PDF, an IT guy told me about this like 20 years ago. Program's still out there. I still use it all of the time. And that's my default go-to when anybody says, I'm having issues printing. Cool. Have you tried Cute PDF? Like I don't even let the question come out most of the time, just because that's usually the answer is you need to get a different PDF printer. And 90% of the time people are having issues in printing the PDF. Cute PDF resolves it. Cool. All right. Tom had a question. Oh, in the email, and he actually put it up here as well. Cool. So Tom had a question coming up here saying, what do you use reporting parameters for? So far, I've only been able to get it to report the thickness of a wall or the floor the family was hosted to, but that's about it. Not sure what else you can do with them. Any cool or thinking outside of the box ideas would be great. Um, Reporting parameters aren't something that I come in all the time and start getting into and using, but I definitely have used them. I think what you've just pointed out is one of the most obvious cases are like my door families. So for me, when I go and I start looking, it's actually probably not even the door, it's probably the frame. Let me go get the frame type. For me, it's going to be this. So there's two things about reporting parameters that you can understand what coming in here. Reporting parameters can be used on anything. So you're going to see in here, I've got one called wall thickness, right? That is definitely a reporting parameter. I know it's a reporting parameter because if I come into my properties over here, it's going to be grayed out. And in the parentheses, instead of saying default, it is going to say report. It will always be an instance-based parameter, if you want to call it that. That's why it's in parentheses. And it's going to start showing you, cool, this is what's going on. Now, the thing with reporting parameters is if I just dimension from here to here, because whatever, I wanted to know what that value was, I can grab this parameter, create new parameter, test, make it instance and reporting, say, okay. Now, whatever happens to this door, it is going to start coming through here and saying, cool, I'm going to give you whatever that value is, right? Those can be shared. So if you needed to schedule what that was, that's where it becomes really, really, really nice, as well as because if you're trying to schedule it, you could make that a shared parameter, dump that into a schedule, and it will pick up on what you're looking to pick up on. However, if you just do it like this to these two objects, I cannot create a new parameter tester, right? That was also a length. I'm going to make it a length. I'm going to make this instance and say, okay. And so my new tester parameter, I can't come in here and say, let's take that test and multiply it times 2, because reporting parameters can only be used if it's to the controlling elements of that family. And by controlling elements, I mean the host, or like if it's an adaptive family, the adaptive points. So if you want to use it in a formula, it has to be to the controlling value, right? So yes, in your case, I have that wall thickness parameter inside of this. My wall thickness parameter is a shared parameter. I want to be able to control that. I want to know what that is. I want to be able to schedule that wall thickness parameter. But then not only am I using it here for my frame depth, I'm then using that in a formula, right? So I have a frame depth down here, and this frame depth value is going to say, cool, if this is getting inserted into the wall, do this. If not, take the wall depth plus whatever I have for the back bend, pull, and push. So I've got a value for the back bend pull, I got a value for the back bend push, and then I've got the wall thickness. So if it's going to wrap the wall, do that. But if it's not, then just be whatever I say for the frame depth. So yes, I am actually doing that out exactly since this is hosted in there and it's set up there. Then the nice part is, since this is here, I can put that in my door schedule, right? So I can pull that out to my door schedule. What is the wall thickness? I have since changes and I call it the host thickness. So a lot of my clients, we call it wall thickness, and I'm like, damn it, now I'm using it on floors, and now I'm doing it on this. So for most of my clients, I've switched it from wall thickness to be host thickness. Works a little bit better. The weird part on this, though, is my template has a reference plane at the front of the wall and a reference plane at the back of the wall. I cannot dimension to those reference planes. Those reference planes had to go to the face of the wall for me to be able to use it. Excuse me, not the reference planes. Those reporting parameters had to go to the face of the wall for me to be able to use it in a formula. Okay. The other time I've done this, the other great example for this is my curtain wall door, right? When I come in here and I go into my door, double curtain wall, right? A curtain wall door, I have a double door, but I want to know, maybe I want to have half of that or a third of that or whatever. So when I come in here and I start looking at my curtain wall door, this parameter here is my typical parameter I use on every single door. It dimensioned in a curtain wall template the controlling reference planes. So this dimension goes to that reference plane. If I go say show related, you're going to see it's highlighting that reference plane, and it's also that reference plane there. So this one I did dimension to the two controlling reference planes in this family. So therefore I could use it in a parameter. So now I can come up here and say, cool, I've got leaf width 1 and leaf width 2, and they're half the value of my reporting parameter of the overall leaf width. Right? So can be used in reporting, shared parameters can be set up as a reporting in one family, not necessarily in the other. But again, I'm using it in a formula here. The other place where I have used it is I use it a lot on adaptive components. So like if I go into my 4-point rectangle, if I go into this family here, I do have reporting parameters here. These reporting parameters are not going to actually where my pick points are, because that's not the size of my panel. So I don't actually go to the adaptive component. So these ones are going to other reference points in this family, and that's so I can schedule them, right? I can't use those in a formula. If I wanted to come in here and be like, cool, let me go create a new parameter. Nope, that's edit. Let me go create a new parameter called test. Great. Probably going to need to be instance. Let me go. Dang it, get my mouse clicks off here. Gonna need to be instance-based, cool. Then if I wanted to come down here and say, cool, I actually wanted to use, where are those ones? What's it called? With points up here. So if I actually wanted to control C this and be like, sweet, I wanted this test to be twice of that, times 2. Nope, can't do it because it's not one of the references. All right, so this case, I'm using it 100%. I've got an adaptive component. It would actually be able to know, nice to know how big that is, because adaptive components adapt to the project. So for me, boom, put those in there. Now I can schedule my panels and what every single size of those panels are going to be. So not like I use them all the time. Mostly using it for like what you said, the thickness of the host object. Absolutely, I do that. You can do the same thing on a face-based object as well. Although face-based objects are weird because the face you're hosting it to, it only see on a face-based object, it only sees the one face, not the back face. So it doesn't, there's a whole lot of workarounds to do there. It doesn't really work well. But yeah, that's really where I start getting into. And Caitlin says, you can't pull the host wall parameters in the door, correct, only dimensions for reporting, correct. So I can't pull parameters out of that wall that the door is hosting into. I have to use Dynamo for that. Would be great. There are other utilities to do that that can set it up. But again, yeah, most of the time, like I have some door schedules of mine where I have the fire rating for the door and the fire rating for the host. I do have a Dynamo script I run that will pull and push. It's a shared parameter in my door called host rating. And I do want that in my door to see. So I then go into Dynamo and say, cool, take whatever its host is, grab the fire rating parameter and push that into my host rating parameter. And I don't ever do that for printing purposes. For me, that's just for QA. Do I have a 30-minute door and a non-rated wall? Do I have a 1-hour door and a 30-minute wall? I just use it for QA purposes. So yeah, kind of the same scenario. I really wish, I mean, Revit knows that and it drives me crazy. I mean, all these other add-in utilities, Dynamo or half these other programs can get that data. It's like, I just really wish Revit would open up some of that for us. But unfortunately, conditional forming on text values. Yeah. Okay. I gotta go close all of these fun things I have open. All right, our last and final question with 4 minutes left. I think we'll actually finish on time. Trying to use filters to turn off all lighting fixtures, except only certain ones in the linked models and elevations. I have the filter set up to type name does not contain, but something isn't working. There were only 2 types of lighting fixtures that I needed to hide in this view template, so I did it. What's the workaround to that? Sounds like you're doing correct. I always just say go in and try to play with it. So for me, yes, when I go into filters, I use filters all this time, all the way. For me, when I start doing things like not, I always put the word not on here. So like you'll see, I've got one in here saying, cool, there are most of the times I want to come in here and I want to hide this generic model family, right? So in this case, the family name contains material populator. Ironically, that is the family name, but I don't ever use is equals. I don't ever do that because like if somebody loads a family in and they get material populator 1 or material populator 2 because I copied and pasted, I've learned that I don't ever use the equals and stuff like this. I always just use the contain. So that way, when that happens, not if, but when, it's still going to filter those out. And then for me, when it says does not contain, that's just when I put not. And so that would be one of the things for me, Rick, is if you actually said equals, I would try the contains or does not contain. The other thing when I get into there do is a lot of times I have issues with the visibility. So I always try to go in when I'm applying that filter, go to a floor plan. When I'm applying the filter to see if I can get it to work or not, I rarely go in and use the just visible, not visible when I'm troubleshooting it and trying to come in here, which I don't see it in here. Generic models, material populators, okay. I will usually go in and just start like changing colors or something because I want to make sure that I'm seeing what's going on with this. Like, is this working? Am I doing it correctly? What's going on inside of here? What are we doing? So I usually try to just troubleshoot my filters out with colors. Once I know the colors work, then I start going in to turn those things on and off. So yeah, trying to go through and try to get that set up. I do it. Usually when it's not working, it's something very simple. And filters are case and space sensitive. That's the big thing I always try to tell people. So make sure you're all uppercase. If they have the word sconce in there with an uppercase S and you have a lowercase or theirs is all caps, it is case and space sensitive, which just flipping drives me crazy. The other thing about filters, also to be taking into consideration. Oh, thank you, Caitlin. God, Caitlin's like in my brain today. The other thing about filters, and I laughed like about a month ago, I had a client saying, well, is there a quick button to alphabetize these? I want these all in here alphabetically. And I'm like, no, because there is a hierarchy for this, right? So this one up here is saying generic model. This is grabbing some generic model stuff. And this one is before this one. So if I had one called material populator code, it's going to do this first. And then if I had another one down here, I'm like, oh, cool. But I wanted to go through here and change this one to be yellow. If it found this criteria first and you were tweaking something for that criteria, the second one gets ignored, right? It's just like a conditional statement. Once I find it to be true, I ignore the rest of those objects. So one down here cannot override one up here. If you needed it to do that, then that's why we have the nice move up, move down. You could grab all of these and move these down, and now I've got code above this one, so the yellow is going to work. And then after that, it's going to start going through and doing the other ones. Yes, and by the way, I see people grabbing one thing and going move down, move down, move down, move down, move down, move down, move down. I'm like, oh my God, people, shift select and move all of those up. You can do the same thing in a schedule too. The move up, the move down, when people don't realize you can multi-select before you use that button is huge to me. Yeah, I shut everything else off. We'd have to troubleshoot the file, Rick. If you want to stay on here once we stop the recording, and I'll make you a person to share. Maybe we can jump in and see what's going on. But other than that, that is the top of the hour. I actually finished within an hour by myself. Yay! Gotta pat myself on the back for that one. Well, thanks everyone. I'm really glad I got to see a lot of new names on here. It's always nice to see when we got a lot of new names. Plus, it's one of those things where, Brian Haley does one called Civil Chat, usually right before this one. But since I had jury duty last week, we had to move this one. But right before Civil Chat, he does that one. And, we're always in a little competition who gets more people. And I think I beat him from last week. So share the wealth. Let people know. More questions asked, the more we all learn, the more knowledge we all share, the more we all become better as an industry. So share the link with anybody you know, pass it around. Even if you have a community college you want to share it with, and get some newbies in here. Sometimes they ask questions and I bring up stupid things like schedule headers, and everybody learns. So cool. All right. Thanks everyone, and I will see you next month. Talk to you all later. I got too many things on top of the control bar.